Oh, you know what I did get today though, actually, was I heard that my vehicle is my roving castle so that Texas law applies anytime I'm anywhere else in the country as long as I'm in my Texas vehicle.
That's similar enough.
That would be great if true.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we are providing an update on flying with your firearm in 2024. We're going to be talking about some rookie mistakes, the process you need to go through, what happens if your flight gets diverted to a hostile jurisdiction, and so much more. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button.
Well, for one, will say that flying with a firearm, although it's nice to be protected where you land. I am the person who gets to the airport like 10 minutes before I need to board.
Yeah.
And so it really does jam that process up.
Yeah, but I'll say, I mean, I think millions of folks fly with their firearms probably every week.
Oh yeah.
TSA, airlines, they're all used to this. It's if you've never done it before, it's worth going over to the TSA website just to browse their requirements. We're going to be going through those requirements, but we'll have that linked in the description below. But it's one of those things that I think people are maybe needlessly afraid of.
Yeah, it really is not. I mean, I will say, as much as I don't like to get there early, it's never added more than an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops to my check-in time.
Yeah.
It's really not that bad. And like everyone's airline is going to vary, but I'm a Southwest gal and like they're just it's so easy. You walk up, nobody's surprised. They're just like, "Oh, cool. Like sign your little ticket. There you go."
Well,
So,
and I think we should start with kind of the legal requirements. And the first one that a lot of people overlook is legal start and legal finish. So, the TSA will have their guidelines up on their website, but they don't really talk too much about, hey, make sure that the place that you're landing, you can legally possess the firearm.
no, and they will not stop you. They
No.
will if you're like, "Here I am in Texas. I'm flying to New York. Here's my gun." They're not going to be like, "Oh, buddy." They're going to be like, "Okay, there you enjoy. Enjoy what happens when you land in New York." I mean, it's just it is not something they're not taking care of you in that respect. But I think the other thing that we need to remind people of is it's not just like if you're like, "Oh, well, I'm actually staying in Pennsylvania, but I'm stopping in New York," right? Your destination is not Pennsylvania. Your destination is, well, like you land in New York and you drive to Pennsylvania, your destination is New York,
Yeah.
right? And so people, I think, get confused about that all the time where they're like, "No, I'm going to blank, but I'm spending one night in name your bad state." Well,
Right.
your destination, if you're spending a night there, is your bad state. You can't have it.
So, okay, assuming that you can lawfully possess the state that you're departing from, where you're landing, the next thing that you need to know is that firearms, ammunition, accessories, except for one, and we'll talk about it, they have to travel as checked baggage only.
Yes. And there is, unfortunately, I mean, I know people are like, "But what about this thing that's not actually a firearm?" Like, what about, I want to fly with my suppressor. Well, you can't do anything with the suppressor alone on a flight. Why can't I have that in my carry-on luggage? Well, because the law. Because
Yeah,
the law says no.
I always crack up when I see, active duty military going through TSA with their guns, but then they have like their fingernail clippers confiscated. Yeah, the TSA doesn't make a lot of sense. But what this looks like, for long guns, most long gun cases, the firearm has to be contained inside of a hard-sided lockable container. We'll talk about those requirements a little bit more. Most handgun boxes do not meet the minimum size requirements, and so they'll need to travel in. You'll have your handgun case, and it will go inside of a larger piece of checked luggage. Now, the logistics of it are, before you get to the airport, what we would recommend is completely unloading your firearm and unloading your magazine, not having ammunition contained inside of your magazine. The TSA will consider that a loaded firearm for their purposes. And the ammunition can be stored in the same box as the lockable container. We recommend just traveling in the manufacturer's packaging, but it needs to be completely concealed. So if you have a plastic box, like aftermarket, a wood box, the manufacturer's packaging, that's ideal.
Yeah, and some airlines actually impose greater restrictions. So I think technically Southwest says they want you to use only the original cardboard manufacturer's packaging for your ammunition. Now, I don't think they're going to stop you if it's in like a plastic ammunition case, but you might want to just look on their website too. Look at what your airline says because they can impose stricter requirements and they could always just turn you away and tell you no.
Yeah, so the kind of rookie mistake I see folks making are leaving the magazines full of firearm cartridges. Make sure that there's no ammunition in the magazine. So what, you got your box here. Imagine you have on a semi-automatic firearm the slide lock back, magazine empty, sitting next to it in the box. You got your ammo in your manufacturer's packaging, sitting next to it in the same box. Well, when you get to the airport, what you'll do is you'll go to your airline's check-in counter, and you have to declare your firearm when you're flying. So let them know, hey, I'm flying with a firearm today. Most of the time, they'll have you sign a form. They'll provide you a card. You'll place that in the bag. But sometimes they'll want you to open up the box in their presence to confirm it's unloaded. Sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they just throw the card in there. But apart from that, the next step is locking it.
Yes, and you are going to want to put a lock through each place on the hard-sided case that you can put a lock. And I will tell you, because I made this mistake once, and luckily I brought extra locks with me because I had some like nightmare anxiety scenario, like what if I lose locks when I get to my destination? What if what if TSA does end up cutting them or destroying them? So anyway, so I went and I checked in shotguns, which is your exception to things going in your bags, right? I mean, if you have a long gun, it's going to be in its own hard-sided locking case. It's actually not going to come out on the luggage carousel, so you're going to have to go pick it up, outside of that in the secure area. But I called me back in. I checked everything. Airline took possession. I went through security, and then it's never a good thing when you hear your name called to return to the front because
Womp
TSA
womp.
wants to talk to you. And sure enough, I got there and they were like, looky what we can do. And I had missed a hole for a lock, and they could kind of pry open the case with my shotgun. And sure, they were like, we can't accept it. And so luckily I had another lock and I popped it on and they took it back.
Yeah, so ideally, every place, eyelet hole that's capable of accepting a lock, placing a lock there, the TSA might otherwise say somebody could pry this open.
If they can pry it open and they can, they will send it back to you. But then that begs the question, what kind of lock? What kind of lock, Richard?
Well, the TSA, and they've clarified this on their website, they said you can use any lock that you want, but I think that that's a little deceptive.
Yeah, so you'll see the TSA approved locks. You can tell because they've got this, maybe we flash that up on the screen so we can see they've got this little red diamond pattern on it. That's great. Those are TSA approved. What does that mean if they say you can actually use any lock you want? Well, it means they have their special key that's going to pop universally that lock so they can inspect your firearm, which sounds like you don't want that, but you absolutely want them to be able to pop it because they are going to look inside. They are going to inspect it. And what happens if they can't unlock your lock?
Yeah, they cut it.
They cut your lock, right? So, I mean, it is, my opinion, best practice. Get one of the TSA approved locks. It just makes your life a lot easier. When they can key it open, then they put it back and you're not down a lock.
Yeah. All right, so we legal start, legal finish. We properly checked our firearm at our counter. Before we get to where you pick up your bag, let's talk about the one accessory that can travel with you on the plane as carry-on.
And that would be your rifle scope.
Yeah. Some of those optics, I was talking to a buddy yesterday. His optic is twice the price of his gun.
Yeah, no, they get really expensive.
Yeah. So,
Really expensive.
so I understand. I mean, you see that with like camera equipment and other things. I mean, these are pretty expensive devices, very fragile. I don't know if you've seen some of those baggage handling videos. It's not an ideal environment for a very expensive rifle scope.
Yep, fair enough. So, you've landed. Where do you get your bags? Ideally, as long as it's not its own long gun, it's just going to come out on the same carousel that it normally would, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's about 50-50. It may just be on the carousel with all the other bags. The other place, let's say you're hanging out there, you've seen all the bags go around a couple of times and your bag's not there. The likely place that it is your airline's baggage claim counter in the baggage claim area.
Right, which has always confused me because they're not supposed to put anything on the outside of your bag to indicate there's a firearm within because you don't want someone to steal it at carousel.
Right.
So then how are they doing that and putting it aside? I've always wondered. Like, reasonable minds, I suppose, can come up with the explanations there. But technically, if you see when you give them your bag that they have placed anything on the outside of your bag to indicate there's a firearm within, they're not supposed to do that.
And when let's say your bag does end up in that kind of segregated area with your airline, right? What they will do, especially with rifle cases, they'll want to check your ID before releasing the bag to you. They want to make sure, hey, this is actually your bag. They're not performing a background check or anything like that. They want to make sure that you're the person who owns the luggage.
So, and I think also remember that you are bound by the law in the state that you're landing in. So you need to have researched ahead of time to see what sometimes you go somewhere where some firearms are not legal. Sometimes you go somewhere where they have really bizarre carry laws. You need to have done the research ahead of time. If you can, and if you have access, spoken to a lawyer in that state who can give you the do's and the don'ts before you land, because nobody's going to care that you're like, well, hold on, I am actually from Colorado and I had no idea this was illegal in Arizona, right? They don't care. They're going to arrest you anyway.
That's my least favorite call. I'm having an emergency. What's going on? I'm driving into this other state.
Oh, yeah. Especially when it's like the middle of the night. It's like, no. Too late.
You should have called ahead of time. But
Yeah.
yes, familiarize yourself with that state's law. Also, I don't know where there's some rumor circulating online that if your state has constitutional carry, then you can constitutional carry in other states. Have you encountered that?
I have not.
Okay, I've had a couple of those recently. No.
No.
You follow the law in the state that you're in. You know, maybe they require a license or permit. Hopefully they have reciprocity with your license. Maybe they have constitutional carry and you qualify, and no license is, needed. But make sure to be familiar with the laws in that state.
Oh, you know what I did get today, though, actually, was I heard that my vehicle is my roving castle, so that Texas law applies anytime I'm anywhere else in the country as long as I'm in my Texas vehicle.
That's similar enough.
That would be great if true.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, if you're in New York, they see your plates from a mile away.
Oh yeah, no. It's actually you're doing worse if you're in a Texas vehicle if you're in New York.
It's
for
the
sure.
Ralph. I'm in danger. But here's a last question that comes up from time to time. All right, legal start, legal finish. You're in the air. Well, things happen. Medical emergencies, weather changes. Your flight gets diverted to a hostile jurisdiction. A jurisdiction does not respect the Second Amendment or your right to keep and bear arms. What do you do if you find yourself in that scenario?
Don't take possession of your bags.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. You do not take possession, because once you take possession, they don't care. They don't care you didn't want to be in Chicago. They don't care you didn't want to be in New York. You have possession of a firearm in a place you're not allowed to have it.
Yeah, so what does that look like? Well, all right, you land, they say, hey, we're gonna offload all these bags. You're at baggage claim number whatever.
You're rebooked in the morning to fly out.
Yeah, go talk to your airline, let them know you're refusing to take or accept your bags. You'd like them forwarded to the final destination, and they will work with you. We don't want you getting hit with a random out-of-state weapons crime.
Nope.
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And let us know, have you flown with your gun? Did you find it easy, difficult, or somewhere in between? Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.